Good afternoon. Greetings from my couch. Is this thing on? This video has no script, just for the record, so I'm hoping that future me will be able to put something together to make it make sense. For your information, I bought this shirt today. Do you like it? I feel like it's very, where's Waldo? Here's Waldo, you know? Anyway, today I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite resources for art, references, and just life in general. And it's something that I haven't seen anybody else talk about. One thing I see a lot on YouTube is people who do art book hauls, art book sort of show and tell videos where they show their reference books that they have. And I'm not immune. I have a few of my own, which I love, don't get me wrong. But I'm also a little bit of a minimalist in that I don't like owning so much stuff, and I would rather be more selective about the things that I buy. So I find myself in this position where I want to be able to access books and other resources which have interesting things which I might want to use as inspiration or to draw from, but what I don't want is to accumulate stuff. I want to make sure that I actually want it, and then maybe I would buy it later. A lot of people would say, Jules, why don't you use a library? Well, that would be wonderful if I lived in a place which had a library where most of the books were in a language that I can read comfortably. However, my local library has a very limited selection of books in English. So we're working with what we've got. Plus, you know, the internet is everywhere. You know, it's on your phone, it's on your computer, you have a tablet, that's a good resource. So really, in the end, online resources, as much as you are a little bit further removed from the reference and it is like less engagement and it is easier to get distracted, I think that they still have value in this day and age. And I have found a great solution to all of this, and that solution is called archiveorg. Now, this is not a sponsored video. In fact, I have donated to archive.org before because I'm one of those people who does things like that, because I really value their service of how they're making information and books accessible to millions of people worldwide. I think that information deserves to be freely accessible, and really it's a wonderful resource that I don't think is talked about enough, especially for historical matters. Archive.org is fundamentally, it's a website, it's a database, and it's run, I think, by the same people who run the Wayback Machine, which is a website where you can go and look at old cached versions of websites, especially ones which are no longer in existence. However, what I find is that I can find so many interesting things on archive.org, and I'll give you a few examples. So you may have noticed that in one of my past videos I was drawing these like medieval style line drawings, which I really like. I really like doing that. But the thing is that I haven't seen a good collection in a book anywhere of these illustrations that was really like accessible for me to buy. But what there is, when I looked up these things online, I found archive.org had them. And so I have saved multiple of these books which have these resources to my collection. And it's a service where some of the books, or leaflets or scanned material that people have uploaded from various collections internationally, they're either available for free, the whole thing, to just look through for as long as you want, or you can often borrow books, and you can borrow them on an hourly basis. So say, for example, somebody in a YouTube video mentions a beautiful reference book by referring to a certain artist, and you think, wow, this is so cool, I'd like to be able to look through it, but I don't you know, have access to a bookshop where I could go and check it out. And obviously in the video they're not going to show you the whole book, right? Or maybe you just want to try drawing, you know, doing a study of one of that artist's works, but you're not really that into them, you know, you wouldn't buy the whole book just to have it for yourself. Well, maybe you could look it up on this website and see for yourself whether they have any books there already. Because if they do, then it's easy to just look through, sit down, find a reference from one of these books that you like, and just use it as inspiration, you know? You don't usually, if you're like me and you also have a job, like a regular full-time job, you don't always have that much more than an hour to do art anyway on a given day, let alone one particular subject. They also have great historical resources. Let me just check. I'm checking my archiveorg on my iPad right now. So scrolling through my collection of books that I have saved, hopefully I will insert the footage of the books as I talk about them. I have particular interests that you can see that recur throughout my stored book collection. So I have animal encyclopedias. These are really cool, often designed for kids, have really great images that you can use for reference to learn how to draw animals from a lot of different poses and also learn a little bit along the way. I found this really cool book on Celtic art and how to construct Celtic patterns, which I remember having as a kid, but I don't have access to it anymore. And so this sort of thing where you have Celtic knotwork and illuminated manuscripts is something that I have a real interest in, thanks to my mum. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to access books on this, especially there's also access to scanned copies of actual archived Gospels online, so like the actual illuminated manuscripts that you can find. But that's a separate topic because those are not available on this particular website, though I will try and remember to link some in the description. There are so many books that are to do with design and using colour. I've saved a bunch of those books as well. So you can see, for example, a lot of books by the greats in colour theory and design theory, such as Josef Albers, are available as books on archiveorg, so you can just have a look through and learn without having the commitment of having to go out and buy the book. Another thing is, so I remember that in one of Natasha Newton's videos, a lot of my viewers also watch Natasha Newton, so I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. If not, please check her out on YouTube. Her channel is amazing and very inspiring. And she has a love for these vintage observers books. So these were British books that were published, they're reference books for all sorts of things really, trees, wildlife, insects, you name it. And I found a lot of these as versions for free and accessible with limited availability, so you can borrow them for an hour and see the reference images. And then I guess if you really find one that you're in love with and you'd like to have a physical copy, then you can seek out one secondhand. It's usually a good call. Yeah, lots of reference books, lots of animal reference books. Thorburn's Mammals, I believe, is one which I found via Emma Carlisle, but it's available. She was using that book for references for her Patreon, I think. I'm not a Patreon, but I do follow her and I see it on her stories. She uses that book, I think, and it's available for you to look through for limited time periods on this website, so you don't need to, you can go and find these references for yourself and give them a go with all the time in the world. Other things that I love are old Japanese paintings, books with lots of artwork in. Absolutely fascinating. I love the colours and the lines and the shapes. I find them so inspiring, you know, just to look at the patterns that they make. So different to art that I'm exposed to on a daily basis, and I think it's important to study historical art sometimes and just see how people made things. There's also a lot of examples of vintage design, like national parks advertisements, just little leaflets and handouts that are great examples of the design of the period. Lots of inspiration to be found there. On the topic of design, lots of books on poster design and typography. I love typography so much. As you might have been able to tell from my videos, I'm a little bit more of a designer than a true classical artist most of the time, but I do have an absolute love for those kinds of books, and there's a lot of them available online, so you can go and find them and check them out whenever you want. And it also, when you click on a publication and you open it, maybe you borrow it, you can scroll down to the bottom and it will have suggested similar publications, so you never know what you're going to find next on this website. It can be a real rabbit hole. But to me, it's a little bit better than just going through Pinterest. You know, I find myself in a Pinterest hole all too often where I sit there and I pin things, but I don't actually end up drawing anything in the end, and it's all too easy. Whereas with this, I feel like I'm much more likely to open my digital book and just sit on a page and just be like, right, I'm going to draw that, and then I'll draw it. The other thing is that quite often I would prefer to draw digitally, especially when I'm traveling, because it means that you don't have to carry so many messy materials and you have a lot more freedom. If you're feeling uninspired and you just want to do something creative without like thinking at all, and you just want to make some cool drawings, you can even like screenshot things from here and trace them. Why not? Life's too short. I'm not selling it, I'm just making it for myself. But yeah, lots of catalogues of fonts and different styles for lettering can be super inspiring for if you want to do some hand lettering for greetings cards or other projects. You can also find a lot of interesting collections here. So for example, I found these collections of book plates. So book plates are little designs that you would put or stamp at the front of a book to indicate the ownership. So you'd say like basically this book belongs to person X, except there is a history of people making custom designs for this. So for these ex libris designs for people's personal libraries, and I love these designs, and it's really nice to be able to access collections of these all in one place. And just be able to look through them and get some inspiration for example, if you wanted to make one for a friend. Wouldn't that be a great gift to make like a little book plate design? Maybe you could carve it out of a rubber stamp or something so that they could use it to put in their own books. I think that's a really nice gift, really super thoughtful. And there are things that you would never really expect to find. Like I found this collection, this book, which is just a collection of honey labels, and you can see that they have just catalogued a ton of different vintage labels which were found on jars of honey. Who would ever have known that existed? But I found it on archiveorg. I just really love that it surprises me every single time that I go there. And I am surprised whenever I see people talking about where to find artistic references and materials to use for inspiration. Nobody ever mentions this place. It's a gold mine. Full of unexpected treasures, and I absolutely love it, and I think everybody should know about it. And of course there are a lot of other interesting things to explore. You can go and find all of those weird old recipe books with like the Depression era recipes, like the potato peel pie or something, you know, like if you're curious about any of that. I mean, I am curious about just about everything, and so this provides you really a great starting point to begin to explore any interests that you might have or be thinking of having. I'm always accumulating new interests myself. And in addition to all of this, if you want to try and learn to draw, maybe this is an art channel, maybe people here are looking to learn to draw or able to draw but curious about some more of the theory, there is a lot of very traditional sort of how to draw teaching books that were available a long time ago, because people have been drawing for a really long time. So there's a lot of resources for where you can learn how to draw like a figure and things like this. I know that there's a lot of resources online, But sometimes it's just nice to be able to sit with a digital book and just look through and at your own pace and just see how different people have taught it, because everyone has a different way of teaching, and maybe the way that people used to write it is more accessible to you. As you can see, I could talk about this all day, so I highly recommend you go and you check it out, and you'll have to let me know if you find any particularly joyous references in there. I will try and post some of my own favourites for you guys to check out as a starting point. But I think that I would love to hear what other people find, because really there's like, the sky is the limit in terms of the references that you can find there and the interesting things to draw that you might not ever have come across in the sort of modern age where everything is very trend driven, which is great, love a trend, but I think that sometimes looking at things which are timeless, it just feels different, you know. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me ramble about a subject that I'm passionate about for hopefully not too long. If you want more art related content, then I highly recommend you check out the other videos that I've made. They're a little bit more practical, a little bit more art driven. This is really just a quick resource drop video, because I am traveling this weekend and I needed to pre-record something basically, and I wanted to share this with you for a while, so no time like the present. And speaking of liking, if you did like the video and you think this resource might be useful to somebody else, please do leave a like, leave me a comment if this was new to you and you had no idea this existed. Leave me a comment if you did know, and if so, where you heard about it, because I haven't seen anybody else talking about this. And yeah, maybe consider subscribing if you have made it through this video and you like what you see, because I plan to make videos every week for the foreseeable future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! So look, I feel very Kurt Cobain.